Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I am Zachary Smith. No Alan Saunders here, as I think he said on the Morning Rush. We kind of forgot to tease this yesterday on the Steelers Afternoon Drive, but no Alan Saunders traveling to Jacksonville for the preseason game. Yes, we are boots on the ground for the preseason even. Not everybody can say that. We will be. And also, post-game shows will be back again this year. Still figuring out logistically what it will look like in the regular season, but definitely Alan and I after that preseason opener against Jacksonville right here, wherever you're watching or listening to this. So definitely very excited for that. And then me and DB will be here tomorrow to wrap you guys up on a Friday, as typically happens. However, filling in for Alan Saunders today, a very special guest making his first appearance on this podcast, although I just went back and watched when he was on my other podcast around the 412, having like a 2-hour conversation about the best food to eat on a football Sunday, which was very fitting for us. Hunter Homistek, how we doing, pal?
What's up, man? It feels good to be back. That music definitely hits different when
Oh,
you're
I
on the
needed
other
your
end.
opinion
Yeah,
on that.
that was
I
nice.
feel
That
like
was nice.
So we ask everybody that comes on here, and like some people's opinions I definitely care more about than others. Yours I would categorize as somebody that I cared about his opinion on the music for. So we're feeling the intro then.
Who did that? Is that like stock music you found? Did somebody make that for you? How'd
No,
you
it's
get music?
all done by people that Alan outsourced for. We got a little bit of a team. Dylan Winters did the logo that's right above you right now.
Sweet.
Steelers Afternoon Drive bus. Brandon Rosside did the voiceover. And then one of the guys that works for the site, his band is the one that did
Nice.
It's like a full 2-minute version, which I can't play right now. I'll show it to you when we wrap up.
Okay,
here.
cool.
I'll
yeah.
play it.
I was gonna say I could have used like 5 more seconds, dude. I was bopping over here.
So it is a little bit. So that what I played is the outro because the intro says mine and Alan's names and didn't want to have that without Alan here. That's how people know whether one of us is missing or not before the show starts. Is who's going to be here. But awesome. I don't know. No, great to have you. I put out the tweet saying that you were going to be on here, and I said that you're the Swiss Army knife of Pittsburgh. You've worn a lot of different hats. Other than the one that you are literally wearing on your head right now, literally and figuratively, you've worn a lot of hats. You've covered the Steelers, you've covered the Pirates, you've covered Pitt hoops, and now you're doing stuff in the MMA world. Really, I've really enjoyed watching it all happen. Going back to when we had the conversation years and years ago on Around the 4 and 2, a lot has transpired. So we're going to talk about what you got going on. Always like set aside 10 minutes at the back end of this thing to do so. But first and foremost, I want to just talk about what we got going on with the Steelers, obviously, on Steelers Afternoon Drive. And we were sitting there talking yesterday about like, hey, what are we going to talk about today? How do we kind of put the show together? And then we got the news today to put the show together for us, which I always love when that happens. I don't have to lift a finger and the show is provided to us. Cam Heyward and Chris Boswell, both looking for raises in 2025. Obviously, the 2 seasons that they're coming off of, I can understand the performance definitely outweighing what they're currently being paid. Cam Heyward, like 18th, something like that, among defensive tackles, 38th among defensive linemen in his total salary right now. I mean, he's set to make less money than Javon Kinlaw, so I can understand why he's looking at that and saying, I need a raise this year. Absolutely. And then Chris Boswell right now, the 8th highest paid kicker in the NFL, despite being very clearly number 1 in the NFL. So what do we make of these situations? It was kept under wraps until today. And I think especially in the case, like Chris never kicks a ton. And, you know, with where Cam is at in his career, it's not necessarily a surprise he wasn't doing much. So I don't think anybody's really questioning their lack of participation before this came out today. But now it's a topic.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and that's something that I always felt the Steelers did a really good job of internally. You know, as you mentioned, covered the team for a few years. And I always felt like Steelers PR did a great job of not allowing leaks. A lot of teams you'll see various leaks getting out, but when they want to keep something hushed, they're really good at it. So it doesn't surprise me that they were able to kind of conceal this for a while, but all things come out eventually. All told, man, I'm not surprised. As you just mentioned, you just dropped facts that kind of make it hard to disagree with either Boz or Heyward's positions. I mean, they clearly are outperforming where they're getting paid right now, and that's how work works. You know, in your job, in my job, in any job, when you're blatantly outperforming your salary, you might have a leg to stand on a little bit. And in Boswell's case, that leg is pretty phenomenal. So, yeah, I mean, him especially, Boswell being not only, like you said, the best kicker in the league, and I don't even know if that's debatable anymore, but also still plenty of life left in him. Cam, you could argue, is getting closer to the end than the beginning for sure. And how much more do you really want to invest in him? Kind of the same argument people were saying with TJ Watt. The the giant TJ Watt extension. There was a strong argument of, well, TJ's best days are probably behind him. I don't agree with that. I'm just saying that was an argument for it. So I could see that with, but at the same time, the Steelers historically been a very, very respectful organization, very honorable organization where these things are concerned. And who has done more for this organization, this franchise over the past decade plus than Cam Heyward in so many ways? So if they're going to take care of a guy, I would expect they're going to take care of Cam. And these stories kind of, you've been around, you've seen it long enough, Smitty. These stories are always non-stories in the end. They're going to work out a deal. It'll be team friendly and player friendly at the same time. They'll load it properly so it doesn't hurt the team too much, but still benefits them. It's not going to be a thing, but it is fun chatter for right now.
Yeah, this definitely isn't either of our first rodeos. And, I like to think that we have a very educated fan base as well that watch or listen to this podcast. So I'm sure for them, they understand as well. I think the business is definitely where it gets tricky, though. And listen, like, the opinions, agree or disagree, I'm fine with where they come from, and we can debate about it. I think where, for me, I always take issue with it is when there's not a consistency. So for the people that are like, hey, a player signed a contract, they should honor it. Not necessarily the way that I look at it, because I don't think that you can relate, your everyday 9 to 5 to what these athletes' lives are like and the position that they're in. Like you mentioned, if I wanted to go seek a different opportunity than what I'm doing right now, I could quit and go do it. They
100%.
don't necessarily have that same ability. So, use the leverage that you can. And my point in saying that was, if you are somebody that feels like, hey, the player signed a contract, they should honor that contract. I don't necessarily fully agree with that. But what I will say is, if that is your stance, okay, you better have that same attitude towards the team, because they are on the other side of signing that contract. However, they're not held to that same standard and will often cut ties with players once that guaranteed money is up, even in cases where that guaranteed money isn't up and they just decide to cut ties. And that's the big thing about this with contracts now, is that's why Alan and I talk about monopoly money on contracts. As soon as that guaranteed money is up, that contract means absolutely nothing. So, a player could sign a 1 year or 2 year, $100 million contract. If the guaranteed money on that is $20 million, they could throw $80 million into year 2 that player is never going to see, and make it look a lot better on the surface. Now, that's not going to happen.
Of course.
Just throwing some completely ridiculous number out there. But that's kind of where we're at. Cam's guaranteed money is up. He was paid a lot of bonus this year. You see where his base salary is at. And again, with where he's at compared to the defensive line market that just got reset this offseason, it doesn't line up with what he brought to the field last year. So I can 100% see why he's looking for a new deal. The Boswell one is interesting to me, because while I do think he could continue to kick for a long time, I get the sense, just from like being around people, knowing him, this could be like his last contract. So it wouldn't surprise me if the reason that he wants this to happen is to get a raise within the last couple of years of it and then call it quits.
Yeah, I really appreciate Boswell for kind of what you just alluded to. I've kind of grown and I guess matured in that way over the years. I used to be very much a you should play until you can't anymore kind of guy, but I've grown to really appreciate the guys that know when to step away, and they're doing it for the right reasons, and they're setting themselves up for those right reasons. Boswell's got a family started. He's doing a lot of extracurricular stuff outside of football to kind of pave the way for his life after football, which is insanely intelligent from a fan's perspective.
That dude's to play so much golf too.
See, I get it, Boz. I get it. But if you can just go away with your beautiful family and play golf for the rest of your life, dude, I get it. So it's interesting with guys like that. And Cam's very much in the same boat. He's very set up outside of football and will continue to do things long beyond his playing career. So there was always this feeling of like, you want to see them play until they literally can't anymore. You want to see them Roethlisberger it or Aaron Rodgers it. We'll see how that goes. And but this other way of thinking, not necessarily even retiring early, I would say, just retiring appropriately. You did what you needed to do. You played a decade or a decade plus. Like, what more is there to do at this point? And you got more to your life than football, which from a fan's perspective, it's hard to hear and maybe hard to wrap your head around sometimes. But I've grown to really appreciate that. I like when guys step away at the right time, and when it's on their terms and not 600 concussions terms. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in his position, he could probably do it for a lot longer than that. But
Sure.
to your point, like, we never know where a guy's priorities lie. He's had a stepson, but he just had the first of his own with his wife. So we'll see. But I like you kind of started off your entire point saying, we're going to talk about it right now for a little bit. These will get done, and at the end of the day, we know that's going to be the case. Like, zero doubt in my mind that these things get taken care of. We'll see those guys on the field. I'm excited for that to be the case. But a couple of transactions to talk about today, news-wise, with the Steelers. With also, we had like a couple of comments that absolutely loved the way that Alan said Will Howard.
How did he say it? Oh, hired.
Yeah, obviously with the accent. And I saw Chris Muller 93.7 said that somebody called in and like just ran it all together as one word. So Will Hired. So we'll try to say that as much as possible on here, but he's going to be out for a little bit. We'll see if it is the entire preseason that he misses. Mike Tomlin kind of left the door open, maybe that he could return at some point, but they need to get another quarterback in there. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers not going to do much of anything during the preseason. So Logan Woodside, who has some familiarity with Arthur Smith in a couple different stops, Tennessee and Atlanta. Logan Woodside was on the rosters there during a couple periods of time. So he'll come in, take some reps away, obviously, during practice, and we'll see how much of the preseason reps that he can get as well. Wouldn't expect him to, compete to even kick Skylar Thompson off this roster, let alone do anything other than that. So, but yeah, he's in here now to give them another fourth quarterback, which they always like to carry during training camp. Then former first-round pick Andrus Peat also brought in, who played a lot of guard in New Orleans, but he's played tackle as well. Spent last year with the Raiders, former three-time Pro Bowler, had a really nice 3-year stretch there in New Orleans. His career arc has been very interesting. Was not good at the beginning. People labeling him a bust. Seems like he found a really nice spot at home, made the Pro Bowl 3 consecutive years, and then has kind of been on the downside again since that period of time. So, but you're talking about a depth addition, a guy jumping on a moving train here, to take words from Tomlin on August 7th. So no issue with this, a guy that can give them a little bit of versatility and play multiple spots. We obviously got 2 former first-round pick tackles that we got a lot invested in and want to see those guys. Calvin Anderson's dealing with an injury. Dylan Cook, who I like, unproven commodity. So I feel like you need to get somebody else in here. I had been pushing for veteran George Fant, but I don't mind Andrus Peat being the guy that they go with either, because unlike Fant, Peat can play a little bit of guard as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great depth piece. You see guys like that come in. They sign guys like this every year, I feel like, that can play multiple positions along the line. And at some point in the season, they end up getting playing time just by nature of how violent and brutal the O-line play is in the NFL. Guys are going to go down eventually. And you want proven commodities like that have already shown they can do it at the NFL level. Whether he's a Pro Bowler again or not, very unlikely, but just getting a guy that can fill in and make decent starts if needed is a nice piece to have. Also, I kind of like the play, bringing a guy like that in with a first-round pedigree, like you said. Maybe he can talk to Broderick. You know what I mean? Maybe he can live that life and be like, hey, man, that's what they were saying about me too. Like, don't listen to him. I turned it around. I became a 3-time Pro Bowler. Like, maybe he can be some kind of veteran presence that he needs.
Yeah, no, I like that point as well. Honestly, like the off-field perspective had not even like kicked in with me yet with this transaction. So that's good perspective that he can definitely bring to the table for all those guys. Honestly, I mean, you got 4 guys on that offensive line that were just drafted within the last 3 years. So
Absolutely,
still a pretty young group. And while we feel good about the overall trajectory, the arrow pointing up within the group, I think. There's still obviously some questions that need answers. I've said before on the show, I think that group has the highest variance of what they could be among any position group on the Steelers. Like, by the end of the year, we could be talking about an offensive line that's like a top 10 unit, or we could be talking about a group that needs to turn over like 3 spots on it.
You're dead right. I could see them being extremely dominant and surprising and just totally fueling and powering that offense. Or I could see exactly what you said, where it ruins the entire offense. I mean, the offense begins and dies with the O-line. And that's not just with Aaron Rodgers under center. That's with literally anybody under center. I personally think you win in the trenches is kind of the cliche, and I fully subscribe to that on both sides of the ball. So I don't know, man. I'm with you to where I can see them just completely flopping and being a disaster this year, especially with very early training camp. The way Broderick's look has not been great from everything I've seen and read, but the talent's there. Like when they made that pick, nobody was disagreeing with it. Everybody was celebrating that pick. So I still believe that guy that they thought they drafted is in there somewhere. Hopefully they can unlock it, man. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about him, but like most Steelers fans watching, you would love to see him at least start to trend upward at some point.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to get like he hasn't even been at the level where I'd say you feel super comfortable about him being better than Dan Moore,
Right.
which is a
100%,
pretty low bar. But I also think though, going back to when the pick was made, anybody that watched Broderick, watched any of the tape, knew the amount of experience that he had, everything like that, you felt like this was going to be like a pretty long track for him in terms of the development. Like this is probably about the time where he should start to flourish. I think it's been frustrating because I would have liked to have felt a little bit better, second half of last year about where he was and seen a little bit more growth. And it didn't happen. So, and then, like you mentioned, in training camp, it hasn't been great. Granted, Alex Highsmith, who he's seen pretty much exclusively prior to his injury, is a very good player, and he'll make a lot of people look stupid. Sure. But Broderick, just going back to that point, with Allen not being at training camp today, my eyes on some other people's timelines as I'm going through reading what's going on at practice. Nick Farabaugh, friend of the show, pretty complimentary the day Broderick had. And honestly, week that he had, he said he stacked like 3 good practices. Chris Carter, another friend of the show, said the same. So again, we're talking about training camp. One of those practices, they didn't have pads on, but certainly encouraging signs. And I think when it comes to Broderick, we will take any of that hopium that we can grasp onto. And I'd say the same thing about this guy when your perspective on him. Roman Wilson, I think, is a guy that I'm not a rookie, but might as well be, and definitely need to see something from in the preseason here. And what I think is going to be interesting for him is he's kind of like a tweener when it comes to the depth chart, in my opinion. Like he'll run with the 1s and the 2s, I think. And I'm curious to see how much he does play on Saturday and throughout the preseason in general. It seemed like it took a while, but this week it really seems like he got on the same page as Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers spoke glowingly, to be quite honest, about him. Said he just needs to get out of his own head because he's talented as hell. And to hear him say that about him, I think Roman maybe, had a little bit of pep in his step after he saw that quote. And they stacked some nice plays and days together, those 3. So any thoughts on Roman Wilson and how important he could potentially be to what this offense is?
I think he's incredibly important. One of the most vital pieces of the offense to be successful this year, I think, especially after trading away George Pickens, obviously. They're right back in the situation they were last year where they need somebody to step up in that receiver group. You've got your number 1, and nobody's questioning who the number 1 is there. He looks amazing. He's going to be fine. But you can't win with just one dominant receiver out there in today's NFL. So they need that second guy, and then they need that third guy too. So Roman, like you said, I think he has the potential to be the second best receiver on the team. If he's any worse than the third best, that's problematic for year 2. You call it year 1, but year 2 technically. But I'm glad you brought up what Aaron said about him because I think that's extremely telling. Aaron Rodgers isn't at the point in his career, and anybody who's followed Aaron personally, he doesn't just throw compliments around for the sake of doing it. He's kind of at that IDGAF, I guess the kids would say, point in his life and career. And we've seen him do this with guys in the past, whether it was Alan Lazard, even Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, probably most notably. Aaron Rodgers was talking about Devontae Adams like he was an All-Pro before he was an All-Pro, if you can remember. Because I may gamble in the fantasy footballs a little bit. I bought very high on Devontae Adams several years before he was really Devontae Adams because of what Aaron Rodgers was saying.
He led the league in drops like very early in his career and just kept kind of going back to him. I actually remember back when I actually did some writing, I wrote an article comparing Deontay Johnson's 2020 season to Devontae Adams' second year in the league.
Nice.
Talking about, they both had a case of the yips and would he be able to bounce back? I'm not saying obviously Deontay Johnson didn't end up being Devontae Adams, but I will say he did have a Pro Bowl season in 2021, which was the year after he had the drop issue.
That's great, man. No, that's a good piece. That's a great piece. And I personally, I'm still to this day, I would defend the fact that Deontay Johnson was better than people gave him credit for being, even when he was with the Steelers. But he never matched his ceiling was still way higher than what we ever saw, which is disappointing. He had plenty more to unlock that just never happened. But yeah, to the point, like Rodgers, he's very intelligent. For anything anybody wants to say about him, his football smarts are out of control. He knows exactly what he's looking for in a receiver. When he's saying things like this, I definitely put some weight on that. He sees something with Roman Wilson, and there probably is a bit of an element of building his confidence and just getting Roman feeling at home and confident in the offense. Sure, there's an element of that, but at the same time, he's not going to say it if he doesn't think it can become real. So he sees something in Roman Wilson that clearly the Steelers saw as well to draft him. Now it's up to Roman to go out and perform.
I Definitely agree. The one thing that I will say, I was having this conversation with somebody, actually a couple different people. Brooke is one of our favorite members of the audience, so I'll give her a shout out because she was one of them. About how Aaron just seems to be embracing this, and maybe differently than a lot of people expected, in terms of just like what he's saying and how he's coming off, and just kind of embracing the lay trobe lifestyle that not everybody does. And we both came away saying, not that we think it's going to change, but let's also this team hasn't had any adversity yet.
Right.
What's going to happen when they do? If they do, hopefully they don't. But, we saw the 2022 team, which still ended up being a 9-8 football team, start out 2-6.
Yep.
If that happens this year, and I'm not predicting that it will, if that were to happen this year, do we still get this same version of Aaron that we're getting right now?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it kind of reminds me, it ties back to what we were saying about Boswell to a degree, where he may just ride off into the sunset when he's happy. In an odd but completely opposite way, I would say Aaron Rodgers is doing the exact same thing, where he's a guy who could be riding into the sunset and nobody would question it.
Right, yeah.
But his decision is that he wants at least one more year. Like, he wants this. This is
Sure.
his riding into the sunset. He's just choosing to continue to play instead. Like, he's
Mhm.
clearly not doing it for money, not doing it for anything. I really think this is for him, and he believes he's in the right spot to close this in style the way he wants.
Certainly seems at peace about everything. And, again, that's not necessarily the way I felt. It's just, I always like to look at everything from all angles and even present something that, if it's not the way I feel, just put it out there to see how other people feel about it. I think it's important to attack anything from all angles. I want to get your answer to a question that I got on Instagram. If you have an answer, if somebody even comes to mind, I actually admittedly had to Google who would even fall into this category.
Oh, damn.
But
Hang
my
on,
guy,
let me get my keyboard ready.
my guy, Owen Pruten. I hope I'm saying that right. Maybe it's Pruten. I don't know. Owen asked me who I felt like was the best Steelers player of all time that is non-American born.
Oh my goodness, man. Non-American born best Steelers player of all time. I guess
the people that are going to be watching, listening to this right now, if they know the one off the top of their head that they honestly probably should, they're going to be so frustrated by us not having an answer within 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I had to Google this so I know it. Admittedly, I'm not going to pretend I don't have his name.
And I'm going to disappoint everyone. I'm not sure who the obvious one is. I guess the only guy, Villanueva, was not American born. He stands out.
Give me your top 5, related and unrelated. Give me your top 5 Steelers wide receivers of all time.
AB, Lynn Swan, John Stallworth. Who are we throwing next? Hines Ward. Was he not American born?
Yep.
Dang.
I was just saying, let's see if you say the name. He was born in South Korea.
Okay, that checks out.
I was going through some lists. A lot, like he was no lower than 3 for NFL, not Steelers, non-American born.
That's actually incredible. Who's the number one?
Actually, I'd have to go back and look. So the other Steeler that was on the list though, Gary Anderson.
Okay,
South Africa.
That's a great one. I mean, that's for sure the hipster. You just want to flex how much you know about the Steelers pick. If you say Gary Anderson to that,
they were the only team with 2 players in the top 10.
Very cool. Okay, I love it.
Have to go back and
it's clearly Hines though, based on that. Yeah, it has to be Hines. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know if I should have gotten some clarification, because I'm hoping he wasn't looking for somebody that was like, the international pathway program or something. Like Hines went to Georgia.
Right. That's why I never considered he was non-American. I knew he had a Korean mother, but at the same time, I never thought he was non-American born. You went to Georgia and you're Hines Ward. You seemed very American. You liked run blocking. That's the most American thing ever.
Hunter, I do want to dive into what you got going on now and everything like that in this walk of life. But before I do that, just wanted to mention that you covered the Steelers. What is probably like the coolest opportunity or story that you can tell us about your time covering the Steelers?
Yeah, man, that's an awesome question. And honestly, I have really fond memories of that entire time covering the team and even covering Pitt hoops and the Pirates. I tell everybody, I know this is a Steelers podcast, but this surprises everybody. But actually, the Pirates were my favorite team to cover, and they were god awful. It was the Clint Hurdle days. There was something about a baseball clubhouse, that atmosphere, playing damn near every day.
So wait, Clint Hurdle days post playoff run.
Yeah, post-playoff run for sure. It was like 2018, 19, that range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was the dark times actually. But funniest story, this is probably my favorite story just on a funny level. This was the year that Mitch Keller made his MLB debut. And we were in Cincinnati covering the Red Series, and that's where Keller made his first start ever. And at the time, I was younger, thinner, cleaner shaven, and had very short hair. Um, when I walked into the clubhouse that day, Ray Searage, the pitching coach at the time, literally thought I was Mitch Keller. Swear to God. He came up to me and said, "Nice to have you here, Mitch. We're really excited." And I literally was like, "What?" And then Nick Kingham, a relief pitcher at the time, also thought I was Mitch Keller when I walked in for a second. He started talking to me. He's like, "Wait, are you Mitch Keller?" And I was like, "No, dude, I'm a reporter. I'm Hunter Homistek." And then leaving the stadium, there was a line of fans wanting my autograph, wanting Mitch Keller's autograph. I didn't sign him, but genuinely at that time, I have to admit, I kind of did look a lot like Mitch Keller. It was, yeah, I got it.
I would need a side by side, but like I can already kind of see it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll put together a little mashup for you. I'll find a good picture from those days for you guys. But yeah, man, that was funny.
Going time covering the Steelers. I think when you were on around the 412, we talked about it. I think that you enjoyed, unless it was I'm misremembering here. I think that you said that you enjoyed covering Benny Snell. But I don't remember
Benny
exactly
Snell.
what
No,
it
you're
was.
right. You're 100% right. Yeah, I loved Benny Snell. I took kind of an interest in all the rookies in general. Deontay Johnson was another one that I talked to a lot. I just said how I kind of low key rooted for him, and that's probably why. Justin Lane was another one at the time. Benny Snell.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing was like I covered the UFC and MMA professionally for like a decade before that. And as much as everybody would cover the Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, John Jones, those stories, I always liked the fighters that were like on the fringe of making the UFC, who were like really digging in, fighting for something. So when I got to the NFL, I kind of gravitated toward those same people, the rookies or like the veteran outcasts that are getting a second chance, guys like that. I wanted to tell their stories. I could go in and write a Ben story or a Juju story or a Cam Heyward story every day, but I was pretty much the only guy writing Benny Snell stories. You know what I mean? And that allowed me to kind of carve a lane, but it wasn't intentional on that. It wasn't like I was like, oh, let me do something that nobody else is doing so that I can kind of have my niche here. It was just genuinely what I enjoyed doing. They weren't as media trained. They weren't the PR robots that veteran players become over time. So they would say stuff that maybe the vets wouldn't say, which made for a way more interesting and engaging interview, I thought. And also we're just closer in age as well, so I think that helped kind of bridge that gap a little bit. We kind of spoke the same language to a degree. So a lot of reasons, but yeah, man, that whole dynamic, you asked like specifically what one of my favorite times covering the team was. That whole dynamic of the locker room and the banter and the camaraderie of the team and just seeing how they actually operate behind the scenes. Now, granted, there's cameras on 24/7, so they're not totally being themselves, but they're definitely being themselves way more than you see in the ESPN post-game interview,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's interesting to see, you doing that and then what you got going on now. The GM 24/7 Fighting Championships here. What you can find at 24/7 Fighting on Twitter. Western PA's elite. I love the word elite anytime it's thrown in here. Elite Combat Sports Organization. And what I think is so cool, I've actually watched some of these events. You can stream them live at stream247live.com. Hunter, tell us a little bit about how you got brought into this venture and literally, was it right into the GM spot? Did you work your way up into that position, or how did this all come about?
Yeah, this was interesting, man. This happened at the same time. I'm getting a beer delivery, so this is awesome. You want to know what being the GM's like, Smitty? This is what being the GM's like. You get beer brought to you by handsome guys. It's awesome. He's not that handsome. Cheers, dude. This looks good. This is are you guys sponsored by any beer companies?
We're not.
Okay, cool. So this is a Lynx Hazy. It's our owner, Ryan Middleton, who I'm about to tell you about. His son just brought us these beers from one of their friends' dads. Brews this.
No, this is a special beer.
Oh, this is out of the tap.
Yes.
All right, hang on. This is even more special than we thought, guys. So we're at Sunny Days Arena. I'll get to it quickly. I'm sorry. We're just bantering here. But my path, like I said, I was covering the UFC and MMA professionally for about a decade. My degree was in print journalism. I went to WVU. I have a journalism degree. And I got a job with Bleacher Report actually very early on while I was still in college, which was kind of amazing at the time. And looking back, I was just too naive to know that I shouldn't have applied for that. Like, I had no qualifications to get that job, but I was like, I like MMA and the UFC, and I'm pretty sure I can write a sentence, so let me try this. And they actually hired me. Of course, starting very low on the totem pole and then working your way up to eventually a featured columnist with them, which was a really cool opportunity. So I was in the MMA world for a long time. If any of your listeners like MMA, I worked for Bleacher Report, MMA fighting, and I ran Flow Combat for several years as well. So I was always in that UFC, MMA world. I would travel, talk to coaches, talk to fighters, cover events, do the exact same journalism-y things that I was doing for the Steelers, Pirates, and Pitt, but just MMA based. So our owner, Ryan Middleton, who actually just brought that beverage in, he started 247 Fighting in April of 2019. And in August of 2021, August 2021, he brought me on to help with some social media marketing type stuff, advertising, marketing, that whole digital realm to help the company because he was growing fast, recognized he needed some help, knew me from the MMA world, like being Pittsburgh's MMA guy, but also working for the site I was working for at the time and wanted some coverage on the site for his event, for a 247 event. So that's kind of how the paths all crossed. And then within 2 events, he came to me and was like, I think you can impact this company in more ways than just social media. Like, I'd like to teach you about this business. I'd like to teach you how it runs. How do you feel about being the general manager? And I was like, well, did you hear the part where I have a print journalism degree from WVU? Like that doesn't equal general manager in my head in any way. I don't know what I'm doing, but I feel like I can learn pretty much anything really fast. Again, the same naivete that led me to apply to Bleacher Report led me to accept this position and think I could do it. But 4 years later, man, we're growing like absolute crazy here, and it's awesome. And we're opening our own event center here, Sunny Days Arena. It's actually where I'm at right now. We opened this Saturday.
Pictures as well as the poster for the grand opening. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what exactly we're looking at here as I pull them up. Should be able to still see
for sure.
Here.
So this is the interior of Sunny Days Arena. This is in North Versailles, right off Route 30. If you guys know where Mercedes Motorsports is, it's on the backside of that building. Or if you're a North Versailles native or have ever been to the Phoenix Theaters there, it's actually the Phoenix Theaters. The Phoenix Theaters shut down, and that's where we're at now. So we're leasing the old Phoenix Theaters.
POV? Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Just a different angle of it. That's the front. Those glass doors is the front entrance. This is kind of like the back of it from the balcony. One thing I really, really love about this place that sets it apart that you're getting to see in these angles is that balcony view. I think watching fights from a balcony is the ultimate way to watch fights. Obviously, being super close to the cage and cage side is great, but you're still always looking through a cage and kind of battling the cage posts and things like that. From above, you get to actually get the bird's eye view where you can see everything at all times. I think it's just kind of the ultimate way to consume fights, but obviously we got floor and balcony seating here. So as an event venue for fights, it's kind of unmatched. Like when Ryan and I first walked in, which at this point was about 2.5 years ago, we just looked at each other and we were like, this is the spot. I don't know how we're going to afford this spot, but this is the spot we need to continue to grow this business. So this is where we're at now, man. We signed a 10-year lease. Our grand opening is Saturday, August 9th. Yep, there you go. Look at you. What a pro, dude. I love it. So that's our grand opening this Saturday, and we're going to open the doors and hopefully kick off a really, really special chapter in Pittsburgh combat sports. Yeah, we have a literal UFC rematch in the main event, which is the first time this has ever happened in Pittsburgh. There's a local Pittsburgh fighter, Kama Worthy. He had 5 fights in the UFC, taking on an Ultimate Fighter vet, Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. They fought in the UFC, and Kama won that one, and now they're going to have a rematch under strict kickboxing rules, so pro kickboxing rules, which is super interesting because Kama won the first fight by submission. So now submissions aren't allowed in this one. So they're going to just have to stand and strike and figure out who the better striker is. So I love that matchup. Obviously, bringing something with that kind of UFC pedigree to Pittsburgh is really, really freaking cool to do.
And then, this is all cool, but this is how you get me right here.
That's how you get me too, brother. we talked
a lot about how when you were on my other podcast, we spent like 30 minutes just talking about food that we would have on a football Sunday. And food trucks will be there. I'll be honest, because of the size of my screen here, I'm having a little bit of trouble reading what those meatball joint. Oh, that's Emporio, right?
Emporio,
Meatball.
yeah, baby. Yep.
Millie's, I can tell that one. What's the is that wings?
Yeah, it's EB Wings. So it's this guy.
Okay.
Ed he's actually at Steelers training camp. He's had his truck at Latrobe.
Okay.
So he's been serving Steelers training camp a little bit. Maybe you guys recognize him. Incredible wings, tenders, smash burgers, that whole kind of thing. And Emporio meatballs, that speaks for itself. Millie's, I think, speaks for itself. But yeah, just making the grand opening really, really special for everybody. Food, some frosty beverages, some dudes in a cage punching each other in the face and submitting each other. It's a good time. As much as we joke like of how violent MMA obviously can be, what I love so much, and specifically in Pittsburgh, is how much it's changed and given kind of collegiate wrestlers and these guys with high level athletic backgrounds that maybe once you graduate college, you got really nothing left to do with your wrestling unless you're going to the Olympics, which is obviously a very select few. There are a few promotions out there like CWA's one semi-locally. They have events locally that do give these guys opportunities, but it's very rare for college wrestlers to find something to do after college, and a lot of them go to MMA. So you see like increasingly high-level athletes here. Zach Frazier would make an amazing MMA fighter, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to get that going.
I have a video here to show as well. I'll be honest, not 100% sure that you will still hear our voices. So I'm going to play this clip and give us a good look. Maybe you'll hear our voices, maybe you won't, but we'll see.
Saturday, August 9th, the grand opening of Sunny Days Arena at the venue with a stacked MMA and kickboxing show. 247 MMA at the venue. Get your tickets. Let's show them how the Steel City gets down. Let's have some fun.
All right, that was sick. I didn't know exactly how that was going to work, but I'm glad you couldn't hear us because there was obviously music playing in a voice. Which, by the way, do not own that music. We do not own the rights to that music. Do not copyright us. But anyways, no, good stuff. That's awesome. I'm super happy for you guys and super proud of everything that you got going on, and can't wait to see where you take this thing. That's this Saturday coming up in 2 days. By the time you guys are watching or listening to this, if you were in the area or if you're not, make the trip. Go watch some fights. It's gonna be a great time.
Or like Smitty said, you can stream it too. We live stream all of our events. That's also available at 247fighting.com. There's links to everything, tickets or pay-per-view there. Or you can subscribe and watch all year, all of our events, which is going to be heating up like crazy now that we got Sunny Days Arena. And on a fun level for you, Smitty, I just definitely want to add, there's more than just combat sports coming to Sunny Days Arena. On September 13th, we're having vintage at the venue, vintage clothing vendors, vintage records, vintage furniture, all vintage things. And I'm sure you can find a hat really similar to this one, if not even cooler.
I am so not taking away from the people that like still do the jerseys and everything like that. I'm getting less and less away from the jerseys thing and wearing more and more team merch, specifically the vintage stuff is what catches my eye.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm definitely, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have to tap in. What was
so
the
date? I already know a few of the vendors there, and a few of them are like specifically sports based. There's going to be some straight fire Steelers stuff there for sure. September 13th,
13th, September. Oh, that's the day before the home opener.
Yep. Tickets are it's the backyard brawl day. Yeah, tickets are only $5, so there's really no excuse to not come.
All right, we'll throw the link down below as well for all the stuff that Hunter's talking about, where you can check it out and stream the event if you can't make it to it. It's going to be awesome. Certainly looks like. And Hunter, before we get out of here, tell the people, well, obviously, as we've been talking about this, I feel like we told the people where they can find you, but give the people a rundown where they can find you on all the socials and find all the information, all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. First off, I really appreciate the time, dude. It's been way too long since we sat down and had a conversation, and we kept it unfoodie for a good bit. The food truck's kind of distracted from that a little bit, but we did good. I'm real proud of us. But honestly, 247 Fighting Championship, Sunny Days Arena, what I would want to plug the most. I don't care about my personal socials the way I used to when I was covering sports and stuff. So go follow Sunny Days Arena. Visit sunnydaysarena.com to view our full event calendar. More than fights. Like I said, we're going to have comedy, concerts, expos, trade shows, everything here at Sunny Days Arena very, very, very soon. So the calendar's booking up. sunnydaysarena.com or at Sunny Days Arena across social platforms, at 247 Fighting Championships across the other platforms. That's pretty much it, man. You can find us if you want it.
Live podcasts coming.
Live podcast. Yeah. Dude, you want to? Yeah, we got our little studio here. You guys run some live podcasts.
No, it's sick. As soon as you actually beat me in here, by the way. But as soon as I joined and added you to the screen, that's the first thing I noticed. I was like, dude, your audio quality is unbelievable. So, yeah. All right, good stuff. Yeah, like you said, it's been way too long. Appreciate you jumping in the saddle, riding shotgun with me. These podcasts, we try to keep them to 30 minutes. When I have a guest on, it ends up being longer than that. So we're at 40 minutes. We got to get out of here. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you are here on YouTube, we appreciate all of you guys for doing so. We are at 16,300. And Hunter, we always like to name a Steeler that wore that number. The obvious one here is Pouncey, 53.
Okay,
but I'm going to go with Clark Haggins.
Oh, you took like literally the one that I could think of besides Bouncy off the top of my head. That's well done.
That's why I had to
there was
hurry up
Tuzar
and get
Skipper 53 or 51 when I was covering the team.
51. I can't think of another 53, to be honest.
Dude, either can I. That's tough. Being on the spot with that's actually really difficult when you're like, do this right now with no research, bro. That's tough to do.
I wonder who it was before. I wonder if there's even anybody else in our Bruce Davis in 2008. Oh, Kendrick Green. There you go. You should say Kendrick Green.
He was an obvious one. Ben's favorite center ever.
Kyron Johnson, Echo Leota, who wore it last year for a little bit.
Yeah, see, they're a
not
little
a great history.
Yeah, they're a little obscure. 53 is not a lot of competition going on there. Imagine that.
And I do have to apologize as well before we get out of here, because I always say that I will read any 5-star reviews that we get from like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whatever it might be. And there were 2 that came in that I somehow did not get. But the person commented on YouTube was like, hey, I left one yesterday. Why didn't you see it? Anyways, Pitfan_76 said, unbiased 5-star review. One of the best unbiased Steelers podcasts out there. Zach and Alan, both very knowledgeable, share their knowledge with the listeners. Always appreciated. And then Ashish said, Smitty and Alan, I remember when you guys started this show. I feel like it happened so casually and organically, but it's now become the one Steelers podcast I make sure that I never miss. Keep up the great work. The one Steelers podcast. You hear that, Chris Carter? Locked On.
Boom.
He can miss Locked On Steelers. He can't miss Steelers.
He misses Locked On. I love Chris Carter, or else I wouldn't be contributing. Man. But yeah,
absolutely, that's my guy.
Man. You and Alan, I know we're running over, but I do want to say, man, I want to publicly just applaud you guys for how you've grown this thing. I've watched it grow from the sidelines for a very long time. You guys are super consistent, super pro. That's 16.353 thousand subscribers. That's nothing to shake at, man. That's a huge accomplishment. So kudos to you guys, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot, not just you saying that, but obviously the audience that has helped us get to that number and continuing to grow like crazy. It's not only because of this show. There's a ton of content that's put on the YouTube channel, but like since the show was added to the rotation 2 years ago, 3 football seasons, but 2 years ago, I've seen this channel go from under 5,000 to where it's at now in subscribers. Incredible. So certainly a big reason, and you guys are all to thank for that. So tell a friend about the show. We appreciate it. And then find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. So for Hunter Homistek and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.